Also, we're going to be recording this meeting so that if you all want to see it later on, we will be posting it and then you can access it later on. Okay, I think we can get started. And I just want to say good evening to everyone. Thank you for coming in. We have an exciting workshop planned, and we hope you guys will stick around and learn something new or just hone your existing skills. So today we are going to be talking about footprinting and reconnaissance. So this is extremely essential when you are conducting an ethical hacking investigation. So before I'm going to talk about, before we get into the tools and start doing everything, I want to talk about why it's important. So before we actually launch any attacks or start using any advanced tools, it's really important to make sure that you conduct an information gathering exercise, right? So the first phase in ethical hacking is reconnaissance and footprinting. So this is all about obtaining as much information about the target as possible. And this phase is probably the most time consuming, so it can take weeks, maybe months to finish it. So the two terms, reconnaissance and footprinting, they're used hand in hand, and they are essentially used to discover as much information as they can about the target. So this can include, learning about remote access capabilities, open ports, open services, and checking out what security mechanisms they might have in place already. So this term actually comes from a military reference. So reconnaissance is a military reference that uh, deals with gathering information about the location of a target by setting up some observation points. So it's similar to what we would do in the cyber world as well. So these two are the first steps in a recognized sequence in order to drill down into the target. So we start by gathering the information, and then we find out maybe what machines are alive and what machines are existing on the network, uh, what machines respond to our messages, finding out open ports, and maybe checking out what operating systems they have, and all of that. So in this workshop, I'll be covering a lot of publicly available tools as well, and we will be using those tools to find out as much information about the target as possible. So looking at websites, looking at email addresses, and some social networking tools as well. So our main goal over here is to narrow down the scope around the target, right? So some of the important questions that should be in your mind is, who is the target? Who are you targeting? Is it an individual? Is it a company? And once you get in, what are you looking for? What kind of data are you looking for? Are you looking for, I don't know, bank account numbers, social security numbers, medical information? So identifying what the target is might help in locating the target. So if you don't have this scope narrowed down, it's more like you're just dumpster diving, right? Just searching until you find something interesting. So that won't be very effective, right? And then another question to consider is, where is the target? So starting maybe with getting the IP address, getting the domain information, DNS records. And then another question to ask is, when should you attack, right? So all of these are good questions to think about while you are gathering your information. So we are going to be using a bunch of low-tech tools and also some tools like Multigo and Nmap that will help us find certain information. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna go to the next slide. All right. So when we are looking for information, it doesn't always have to be, highly technical skills, right? Sometimes when you are evaluating your target, you can achieve this through low-tech skills. So the first one I want to talk about is actually competitive intelligence. So this is used by a company when they want to learn about their competitors to make better decisions. So I'm going to stop my screen share and share another screen. Okay, so I'll get to this in a second. Okay, so competitive intelligence, right? So they use standard search methods. It's completely legal. The illegal version of this would be industrial espionage, right? When you try to steal trade secrets or something like that. But in ethical hacking, we use competitive intelligence to gather information. So we can find facts about the target using some of the publicly available sources. This could include financial reports, press releases, news articles, and all of that. So an example of this is this website that I have on my screen, Edgar. So Edgar is an electronic data gathering, analysis, and retrieval database. So it has a lot of things that you can search for. So if we look at it, there's a lot of information that we can find. For example, if you want to look at some of the filings or disclosures that a company has uploaded, if we want to take an example, let's say that we want to look at the 10K form of a company, which is their annual report. And this is, publicly available, right? So if you're in the process of gathering information about a company, you can go through this, and this would give you a picture of a company's business, where it is located, the top level management at the company, and also maybe some risks that they are concerned about. What are some of the challenges they're facing at the moment? So it gives us a lot of information. And there's also financial data, like maybe they're merging with another company. So having all of this information will help us start to narrow down our scope on the target. And there's a lot of other websites like this as well. Some of them you need to pay for, some of them it's publicly available. And sometimes, let's say that you get the location of a company listed in one of these forms, and you think that it's not something that could be dangerous, right? But some of the most significant breaches have occurred by someone just driving up to the building. They found the address, and then they searched it up on Google, Earth, and then they know what the target building looks like, and then they go in and just hack into their wireless network. So using techniques like competitive intelligence will help us dig public information, and it is a great non-technical approach to footprinting and reconnaissance. Okay, so back to the slides again. All right, so the next thing that I want to talk about is search engines. There is a lot of advanced search engines. For example, Google has a lot of advanced capabilities. They can search based on specific operators and keywords to define what we are looking for. So let's just take an example. For example, if you want to look for PDFs in the networking topic, right? So if you just type extension ext PDF networking, you get PDFs related to networking. Or if you wanted to search for Excel sheets related to networking, you would just type in these keywords and get networking. And it can get a lot more advanced than this, right? So if we go into the site called, I can share my screen, give me a second. Okay, before I show that site, I can maybe show this. All right, so Google has its advanced search capabilities as well. So you can search based on certain phrases you want to have in the sentence or any of the words, and you can narrow it down even by language. Other than that, there's also this webpage called Google Hacking Database. So this is really powerful. It can drill down and see specific searches. So you can follow along with me as I'm going to all of these web pages and try doing it as I'm doing it. So you have different categories in this website. Files containing juicy info, files containing usernames, files containing passwords. So you can use these specific keyword searches to find sensitive information. So let's look at one of the examples. I can put it in the chat as well. Okay, so I added this keyword in the chat, and if you just type that in, so it says in URL view index.shtml. If you type that in, you can see all of the unprotected cameras or webcams that are there available on the internet, right? So you can, so if I just go into one of these, this is a live view of a camera from I guess it's a science experiment or something, but they have this up and it's unprotected and we can access it. So this is just the surface of what we can scratch and what we can find, right? We can use Google hacking to uncover security holes, advisories, server vulnerabilities, and this should be covered when you are conducting an ethical hacking investigation. Okay, back to the slides. Okay, so we talked about Google hacks. Okay, before we get into email and websites, when we are conducting a footprinting exercise. Public records can also provide a great deal of information. So when we want to have specific filters like the name of the person, the state, and the age, we can find it with public records. So all of this information is maintained by the local, state, and federal government. So this could include birth and death certificates, property title, business records, and all of that. So let's look at one of the sites which we can use to find information. Okay. So one of the sites is Anywho. You can find people, places, and business, and it will provide you with a detailed search, and it's completely anonymous. So as you guys can see, we can add the name of the person. So I'm going to try adding my name. Sometimes it might not show up, which is good, right? You want to try and be anonymous. But if it does, okay, so it found a Rachna Gupta, age 55. That's not me, but try looking for yourself. See if you are publicly listed on this site, and notice that it gives you the age, the address even, and sometimes the phone number as well. And then you can even do a yellow pages if you're looking for a business, and then a reverse phone lookup. So look for yourself and let me know in the chat if you are able to find yourself, and let me know if the information provided was accurate. So you can, put as much information as you could possibly put in here, all of the categories, and try searching for yourself. And there's like so many other websites. This one is a free website, but then there's, I think, People, which you have to pay for, and it would do, a more detailed search. So we can use this information, right? Even though it gives us less information, it's still information. So an important thing is we need to try and protect against this type of searching, right? It's really difficult because it is public information. So you'd be surprised with how much public records you could find. Okay. So back to the sites. So the next topic or area we would talk about when we are conducting a footprinting investigation is websites and emails, right? So when we are looking at emails, it's one of our main forms of communication. It is well sought for by hackers. But the question to ask is, where do they find these emails? The easiest or most common place would be on maybe a company's website, right? So I'll be going over, let's see, HT-Track. I'll show you guys what this is. What is my IP? We'll be doing a search on that, and Maltego as well. So I'm going to share the screen. Okay, like I was saying, you might use a website to look for emails. So this is UTD's Academic Advisors webpage, right? And you have all of these emails listed. So that is one of the places you could find these emails, but they can also be generated and crafted, right? So most of these email attacks, they're commonly linked with identity theft. They can take over your account, get all of your contacts and personal information and all of that. So having a valid list of email addresses, you can use that to generate a spear phishing attack. So one of the most important things you should try to do is conceal these email lists. What you could do instead is maybe have a form-based way of contact, right? So that you don't expose your emails. But over here, some of the emails are listed, and you can use this to contact them. So if you look at this and we study the way it has been formatted, we see the name. So it's the first name dot last name at utdallas.edu. So this is a pretty simple pattern, and you could use that to spoof your own email address and craft an email address similar to that and send it out. And there are some generators that you can find online, some email generators that would do the task. And yeah, so whenever an email recipient gets the email, you see that the from field is being spoofed. And the average user might think that it is a legitimate email coming from a valid source. But you need to always look out for forgery. So coming back to the slides again. So what are some best practices when we are, looking for email, when we want to protect against email spoofing, right? One of them is use sender policy framework. And then another one is that make sure you use virus filtering and antivirus techniques, because the malicious activity can come through the mail. And then you can use strong spam filtering techniques. And then the most important thing is user education, right? In case any of these slip through, you want to make sure that people know that emails can be forged and they don't click on a suspicious link. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about are websites. So for websites, one of the things that hackers might do is website mirroring. So website mirroring is done, and they basically download an entire website and study the contents. So they might look for emails, phone numbers, maybe some hidden comments, some information that might be seen on the web page, right? So there are some tools that we can use. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay. HTTrack is a free tool, and it is a website copier. So I can show you what it looks like. So you can download the entire website and store it onto your local directory, as you can see here. And once it has been downloaded, you can actually go through and find information. So you can check for protected content, emails, password information, and all of that. But let's look at, a website that has this password field up here. It's also important to know just how web pages are made, right? The code behind it. It's important to understand the structure and the format of the source code as well. So if we want to look at the source code, we can let me just make sure this page has been refreshed. Okay, looks like I'm logged in. All right. So instead of, one option is to download the website, but if you don't want to do that, you can just inspect the source code. So you can just right click and press inspect, or you can click on view page source, and that's what I'm going to do. And it opens up the source code in another page. Okay, so right now I'm on the source code. And over here, I would look for maybe some comments. Maybe someone stupid commented the password, right? And or maybe some clues to what the password is. So over here in HTML, your comments are, the brackets, and then you have the exclamation point. So over here, it says that the password is this, right? So a lot of times people would put clues in the comments, and it would be easy to look for it when you are looking through the source code. It is hard to defend against things like website mirroring, right? Anyone can download this tool and try to download a website. But what you can do to defend it is that you prevent people from, maybe you can have some code that doesn't allow to do Control-C, Control-U. But the bottom line is that you go through your website and you review it carefully before you publish it, right? You want to make sure that there is no important information that is plainly visible, right? So if you have your own website, maybe what you can do as an exercise is download your own website, look through it, see if there's anything exposed, and get rid of it, because it shouldn't be on your website. Okay, back to the slides again. Okay, so we are talking about websites. Now, when we're talking about emails and websites, it is also very important to investigate the header of your email. If you're not sure if the sender is legitimate, you can check to see if you can check the email headers and see where the email has come from, and see if it is a valid email address, if it's a valid IP address, and then you can cross-check it to see if the reputation is bad, right? If you do have strong spam filtering techniques, the email won't come through, but sometimes it does. So there are tools which I'm going to show right now. Okay, so I'm on the site called whatismyip.com, and they have their own email header analyzer tool to find spam. So if you are following along with me, you can go on to this website, come to their email header analyzer, and what I want you to do is get an email header. So I'm going to do that as well. So just open up any email and get the header. Most of the times you find the header by pressing the three dots that you have in the side, and it sometimes says get header or show original content. If you're not sure where to find it, you can just do a quick search and it will tell you how to get the headers for whichever email server you use. Okay, so it's taking me a second to get the header. Give me a second. All right, so I'm just copying the header. Okay, so I have the header, and hopefully you guys do too, if you're following along. So this is an email that I got, and I just copied the header, and I'm gonna click Analyze. And once it's done, it tells me a lot of things. It says that the email source IP address is this, and some of the other information as well. So I just copied the header. Make sure you copy all of it to analyze it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the IP address and head over to IP address lookup, which is also available in whatismyip.com. So I'm just going to click that and paste it over here. Okay, so now I see that it is coming from New Jersey, US, and because I know that the person is from New Jersey, whoever sent me the email, I know that it is accurate, right? So you can cross-check and see if it has a good reputation, a bad reputation, and you'll know if the email is valid. So the header gives some valuable information about the email itself. So when you are conducting an ethical hacking footprinting investigation, you do need to take a closer look at these email headers. Okay, so I'm going to stop that and come back to the slides. Okay, so I'm not going to show Montastic. This is just a simple tool to check whether your website is up and running. Instead, we'll move on to Maltego. So Maltego is an open source tool. It can be installed on both Kali and Windows. It's compatible with both. Give me just a second to load it up. All right. While that's loading, I can just talk about it. So yeah, Maltego is an open source tool. It's especially helpful if you're looking for specific information when you're gathering intelligence. And it uses publicly available resources. It sort of goes through domain names, IP addresses. It gives you specific information on people, websites, emails, phone numbers, and all of that. There's a free version and also a paid version. So I'm going to give you a demo, just a high-level demo of how this works. I'm going to show it on Kali, but again, if you have it downloaded on Windows, you can use that as well. Okay, so this is what Maltego looks like, and this is just a new graph in Maltego. So I've just opened it up, and basically you need to sign like a user's agreement and all of that, sign up, register, and once you've done that, you would see this. And on the left side over here, you have a palette, basically, of all the things you can sort of target. So you can look at devices, a domain, what else? A person. You can look for anything. So let's say we want to narrow down on our scope on a domain. So I'll just grab that over. And this one says paterva.com. So again, just a disclaimer, please don't use this to scrape email addresses or anything like that. This should just be used to conduct a search. So that I have my domain silksandsfashion.com. Don't try to hack me with that. All right, so I have silksandsfashion.com, and let's see what are some of the things we can find from this. So if I right click, I have these transformations that I can do on it. So I can try to get email addresses from the domain, DNS from the domain, files and documents, and a lot of other things. So I'm just going to do all transforms and run that and see what happens. So I guess my domain wouldn't work on this. Dismiss all, dismiss all. Or it's running something. Let's see what happens. Wow, okay, it does not like that. All right, let me just close all of this. Maybe I should have done just one transformation. But a transformation is basically anything that you want to search. It's called a transformation in Maltego. All right, so looks like it didn't find anything on this domain. So I'm going to switch it up. Let's say that we want to try utdallas.edu. All right. And let's say that I want to look for any emails associated with this domain. All right, that's a bit weird. It might be an issue with my Maltego actually, because it was working a few minutes ago. I'm gonna try one last domain. If it doesn't work, I'm just gonna skip it. Let's try all. Okay, it might be an issue with my network. But yeah, essentially I can just tell you what would happen. If you add a domain and try to find email addresses, it would go through all of the publicly available information and find email addresses associated with that. And there's a bunch of other tools similar to Maltego. There's Shodan, I think. That's pretty good. And you can just see how everything is connected to each other. Okay, I'll come back to this at the end maybe and show you guys if it's working, but I'll just stop that. It might be something I can fix. All right, so that is an example of an open source tool. I'm just gonna check the slides. All right. Okay. So the next part of the footprinting process would be using the domain name system, right? That would really help in mapping your target's network. So the domain name system is an application layer protocol. It converts your host name to an IP address and vice versa. So DNS uses port 53 over UDP or TCP. UDP and TCP are two protocols. UDP is a connectionless protocol, and TCP is only used for a zone transfer. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to be talking about DNS in general and some of the attacks it can be prone to and some of the best practices we can enable. So DNS is essential for any network, right? If the DNS has something that fails, it will prevent your hosts from finding one another. So the DNS system is essential, but it can also be a weak spot, right? Sometimes it can give out information about your network's layout. So there are a lot of threats that include maybe compromises to some of its files, an attack. There's one attack called the flood attack, where it floods the DNS server with a lot of queries, and it might end up overwhelming the server. So it ends up acting like a denial of service attack. And then there's another attack where you could poison the cache, the DNS cache on the local server. So it is important to use DNS footprinting tools to find out about DNS, and it will help you try and understand where the weak spots are and try and mitigate the situation. So some of the best practices that you could do is restrict zone transfers only to authorized servers and no other servers. Deny all inbound connection requests to port 53. So this is important because DNS uses port 53. So you want to make sure that there are no inbound connection requests to that. And then the last one is consider using DNS security. So there's a set of extensions that DNS has, and it can help you provide authentication mechanisms when you are dealing with DNS records. So if we take the same example as I showed before, where we went to UTD's academic advising email lists, and we saw a bunch of emails. So we could, craft an email using the pattern that we saw. So first name dot last name, and for the domain, we could, generate a domain name that would sound like it is legitimate. So you could check the validity of a domain. I think it's so GoDaddy has you can check if a domain is valid. So for example, if you wanted, managementutdallas.com. Okay, so it is available. So you could try and see if you could craft a legitimate sounding domain and try and spoof an email using that. And there are some other tools as well. So there are domain name generators and domain name analyzers, where it will analyze whether the domain is valid or not. Okay. Another thing that's very important when you are looking at footprinting is ICMP. So ICMP, it resides in the network layer. So it stands for Internet Control Message Protocol, and it's used by routers or hosts to communicate updates or information. And it can also help you troubleshoot maybe some network issues that you have. Why people use this when they are looking at footprinting is because it is a very talkative protocol. What that means is it can tell you a lot of information about the host. You have different types of messages that you could see. And if we look at an example, so in the document that we shared, you should have a link to Chris Sanders' packets, Wireshark packets. And he's collected some Wireshark packets over some time. And it's good to sort of give you an overview of how these protocols interact with each other. And I want to look at ICMP. So you could maybe download ICMP tracer route. So you can download that, and you should open it up in Wireshark. So Wireshark is the tool that you can use to open up these packets. So if you have Wireshark installed, open the packet up, and I'm going to do that as well. All right. So I opened up ICMP tracer route, and I just want to look at some of the things, some of the type of messages that you can see with ICMP. So there are different types of query messages that can characterize the output. You have echo, echo, timestamp, information, or subnet mask. So these ICMP messages, they are transmitted within an IP datagram. So all of these are different packets that are being sent across. Okay, so over here we see that there is a ping request, and you see there is a source and a destination, but there was no response found, and it gave you a time to live message as well. Time to live exceeded message as well. And it can really tell you what is happening in the network. So time to live would mean that it exceeded the time for it to reach the host and it was dropped. The time was exceeded, and you can see that there was a ping request, there was no response found. So what does this mean? It means that it sent out a message to the host, but the host didn't respond back. The host could be up, but it has blocked it from sending a message back, right? So you can use this tool and ICMP as a protocol to see which hosts are alive and whether it will respond to them or not. So in this packet capture, we only have ICMP packets, but usually when you are capturing packets, you have a lot of different protocols, and you would have to maybe insert a filter to filter out only the ICMP packets. Okay, so overall, ICMP is just a very chatty protocol, and it's used in ethical hacking to see which hosts are alive, which ones are going to respond. So I'm going to stop this, come back to the screen share. All right. So the last thing that I want to talk about is NS lookup and dig. So NS lookup is used when you want to evaluate the domain name system, right? So it's native to most operating systems. Otherwise, you'd have to check if it's there or maybe download it. And when you use this, you can either make it interactive or non-interactive. So let's just look at a simple example. I'm going to share my command prompt. Okay, so I'm in my command prompt, and let's look at this one right here. So I just typed in nslookup google.com. It gave you the IP address and some other information as well, right? So you can see the results. The first one is the local DNS server, and then you can see the resolution of it. And you can use this in, so the similar version in Kali Linux would be dig. you can use that to resolve it into your IP address and all of that. Okay, so that's NSLOOKUP, and you can also use ping. So I showed you how the ICMP protocol works in Wireshark, but ping also works with ICMP. So it sends a message to Google, and then you get a reply from it. So it sends these packets, and then you receive it. And again, this is also another way to check if the host is there, if they're responding, and all of that. So some best practices is that you should probably want your machines to not respond to these, packets being sent to you, so that they won't know if you are there, and you can block it. That would be a best practice. Okay, coming back to the sites. Yeah, so NSLOOKUP for Windows, and then dig for Linux. Then I talked about ping. Yeah, so that's the end of the footprinting exercise. I want to open up the floor to questions right now. So if you have any questions, please leave it in the chat and I'll respond. And all of the other officers can also respond, add in. So does anyone have any questions while you guys are maybe thinking of some questions? I'm gonna just check if Maltego is working right now. How can we prevent our systems from responding to ping? So one thing that we can do is that if we are, it's fine if they ping like once or twice a day, but if you notice that there are, connections coming in like 100 times a day or more than that, then you probably need to have an alert to check out, what's going on, monitor where it's coming from, and try to do that. Okay, at the beginning, you used this link to access public video feeds. Where did you get that link or come up with it? Is there a URL format we can use to look up different things? Okay, for this, I think I got it from the Google Hacking Database website, the one that I showed you before. Let's see, this one. I'm not sure where I found it exactly. In one of these categories, I'm assuming. So there's a lot of things that you can find with this. And I guess they have a specific format, like a specific pattern on how they sort of put the keyword together. So you can read more about this and see how they come up with it. But yeah, that's a great resource to sort of see how advanced searches work. But yeah, any of the other officers want to add on to that question? Yeah, there's a lot of courses available. Okay, I'm just going to check if Maltego is working. But again, thank you everyone for coming in. We hope this workshop was useful. And it's surprising, right, how many low-tech tools we can use to actually find information, sensitive information about our target, right? So this is the longest phase of ethical hacking, where you gather as much information as you can about the target, and then you can start, gaining access into the system and all of that. But yeah, we look forward to seeing all of you in our Discord. So if you haven't joined our Discord, please do. And we also look forward to seeing you in all of our future events. For some reason, my Maltego is not working. It was working like an hour ago. It's not working now. But maybe, yeah, you can try it out yourselves and let me know how that goes, what you were able to find. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming in, and bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
So I think we'll be posting the recording. Amna, are we going to be posting it on our Instagram or everywhere?
Not sure yet, honestly.
Yeah.
Definitely in the
Chirag?
Discord if you join that.
All right. Chirag, yeah, we'll let you know. So that's Discord. So please join the Discord.